Hello and welcome to this episode of the GrowVC Everyone Funding Startups podcast. And in this episode of the Startup Stories series, we're talking with Jesse Sommer, one of the founders of CabCorner. So Jesse, why don't you give a little background on yourself and how it is that you became an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I was I think always driven by some sort of entrepreneurial spirit to the extent that the activity I enjoyed most, just with my peer and social groups, were always project based. We enjoyed doing things, building things, selling things, even kind of from a young age. I just found that to be entertaining. I think to some extent, anything that you do, it has to be done because you enjoy it. And that's obviously what I've brought to what are more professional ambitions now. This is my second go around in the web game, which is to say that I'm now doing or pursuing an enterprise in the digital space, and this is the second time I've done that. A few years ago, I was involved in I guess you could say, an online bar and restaurant guide, and which kind of morphed into a customized search engine outfit. And learning quite a lot from that venture, a few years later, I met up with a college friend from my days in college, and we conceived of CabCorner.com. And CabCorner is basically a platform designed to connect individuals located in the same area who are headed the same direction around the same time. And I imagine we'll get to that in a second, but to finish out this question, John McKinney, who is actually the founder of CabCorner and who essentially envisioned the core objective and mission or service of CabCorner, also kind of had shared in this sense of an entrepreneurial spirit, being able to take control of a question and come up with answers to it and bring those answers to the public in the hopes that they too see the value in that vision. And just kind of in speaking with him, as he kind of explained this idea to me, knowing that I had an entrepreneurial past and could essentially help him develop this concept, I kind of realized that he was falling into that same template that I'd grown up with of being a friend that I could see myself pursuing this entrepreneurial gambit with. And so it's been about almost exactly 2 years, and we're still hacking at the CabCorner project.
And let's dive a little deeper into CabCorner. What was the specific customer problem you set out to solve, and how did this develop?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem we identified exists today, and you could probably denote it in the form of the quote-unquote empty backseat real estate that exists in cabs throughout America in multiple markets. We have a situation in which cab travel is this kind of cultural phenomenon whereby city streets, especially in New York, which was our founding test market, that's where we're headquartered, there's this density of cabs that are utilized by single fares, by one person who seek to go from point A to point B. And John McKinney kind of first acknowledged the problem when one evening, as he prepared to make his way back across the Brooklyn Bridge to his apartment in Brooklyn, he realized that a lot of his fellow bar goers spending the evening out in the social scene, and a lot of his fellow bar goers were facing the same question that he had, which was, how do I get back across the bridge or to another location without waiting for the inconvenient mass transit options that were available? That'd be the subway or the bus. And he realized that if there were some way to connect people, to figure out where they were traveling, they could very easily split the fare of a cab, join one another, two strangers, meeting up at a corner, hailing a taxi, getting in the backseat, and identifying what the savings could be if they were to pool their resources together to go from point A to B or point A to B to C and split the fare along the way. The other problem that tackles is the fact that single fare rides result in a lot of exhaust funneled right into the atmosphere from cabs who are driving around idle or with just one individual in the back. John looked at this as a way not just to solve a problem, which was to reduce travel costs, but also as a means of reducing exhaust fumes and other street pollution associated with this high volume of cabs that were really only being utilized to cart one person back and forth.
How has the reception been to CabCorner? Because I imagine that, especially in New York, a lot of people will identify with what you're doing. And especially when you highlighted the environmental factor, that is bound to resonate with a lot of different people.
It has, and in fact, there are actually a few different stakeholder groups that have really responded to the message positively. And the first of which is the media. Our early success was driven almost exclusively by the press mentions that we received in a variety of print, online, and broadcast outlets. The concept is not exactly new. It's one that is easy to identify with, and we have found more and more highly easy to explain. It's as if the public is ready for this option. The other thing was, and I think something that kind of conspired to assist us in promoting the website, was the recession, the global recession and the turndown in the economy, because all of a sudden it made looking for those opportunities to save money paramount. And interestingly enough, we discovered when we were first engaged by our initial pool of users that we had actually perhaps misidentified our target demographic. We had originally thought of looking at this as a means of saving costs for existing cab customers. What we kind of failed to appreciate in advance was that our core demographic, our core target audience, were in fact those people who already take the mass transit options and who now can look at cabs as this affordable alternative means of public transportation. It's about taking or leveraging existing private infrastructure in the form of these private cab fleets and turning them into another option of, or another means of traveling publicly, mass transit, working with other people or meeting other people so that one can share a ride and essentially keep their costs associated with mass transit largely the same, but extend the option of traveling to this upgraded form of comfort, that being the back seat of a taxi cab. So to answer your question, the reception has been highly positive, both in the media and among users. And our challenge really is just cultivating a user base that meets what we call the critical mass question. And that, of course, is just in the form of finding enough people who are in the same area, headed somewhere around the same time, and headed somewhere in the same direction. Once those three criteria are met, there's obviously tons of different options or tons of solutions that CabCorner can offer its users who seek to share cabs. But the critical mass has only been achieved in a subset of the areas that we serve. And so that's our challenge now, is promoting the platform, making more people aware of it, so that we can bring them into the fold of CabCorner's user base. And we find that once users hear about us once or twice, they generally engage pretty positively. There's not much of a learning stage that our users have to go through.
Being a second-time entrepreneur, and in terms of the general experience with CabCorner, has it turned out as you anticipated?
I think it actually was more successful early on than I had anticipated. And that's obviously always a positive. At the end of the day, the real challenge for any entrepreneur, I think, comes down to resources. There is a risk and a gamble involved with setting out on your own. And one of the first obstacles always comes down to the lack of institutional support or a lack of network support, which requires entrepreneurs to figure out the best means of funding their venture to the point at which it's not only sustainable but profitable, and which permits the development or advancement of the idea and possibly exploration into new sectors and opportunities. That's where we are now. We're in the process of having built this incredible product and having assembled this fantastic team of very dynamic individuals, creating the vision into something that can be accessed by other members of our team. We've achieved all that, and that was obviously a great part of this learning experience, to figure out how to make our idea the idea of several other people who could come together, coordinate activities, and assist in the various demands of the enterprise. But we do need and are constantly seeking money to support our efforts as we set about activating our revenue streams and monetizing